All right, everyone. Today is an update on the chestnut trees. I try to time some of these videos when I see a new stage of the tree kick in, or when it's preceding the future nut crop that's about to fall. I'd say in the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. Things are getting ready to change, so we might as well start talking about it now and kind of preparing to what I think this side of the property is going to do. I know that all these big oaks here are just fine as far as nut production. Nothing wrong with them. But I'm more focused on the chestnuts. So the chestnuts have entered a new phase. Now this video is mainly for beginners, maybe first-time chestnut planters, whatever the case may be. If you're experienced, I'm probably going to bore you to death with this one. But the burrs on the tree that were pollinated back in the spring generally go through this long lapse of where you see hardly any growth occur in the burr. It looks like it is a dud, basically. And don't pick them off. They're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So you need to wait. And in my state, since it's Tennessee, August and September is a big month for these trees. So the buds have rapidly swelled up. Let's see here if I can try to zoom in on a good area here. All right, so right up there, those are pollinated buds. I can tell by the size that they are now. Anytime you see them rapidly swell to, let me get the camera right. There we go. Anytime you see them rapidly swell up, bigger than a ping pong ball or a baseball sized burr, you got a really, really good shot that there's going to be 1 or 2, maybe 3 nuts in those burrs, because this is the time that they will continue to swell even through August and a good portion of September, while the nuts are rapidly developing. So this one right up there, that one looks almost like a triple. It's actually a little bit bigger than a baseball. So I like that this tree here is got from the looks of it, a very high pollination rate. This one is my largest Dunstan, but is not my best producer. A lot of shade issues had slowed this tree's production. But this year, it has more than doubled last year's production. So at least it's actually expanding its nut crop now. And I think from here on out, that particular tree should get better practically about every year for a while. Other trees that are even further shaded, there's big fat zeros on them. So if you don't see any burrs on the tree by now, those trees are duds. It's over. So you might as well count them off the list as helping you. Now this tree here has a good set of burrs on it. Matter of fact, here's a pair that's real close. Those are healthy looking burrs. Most likely 1 to 2 nuts minimum is in those, just by the size they're already getting. This particular burr is a little bit smaller, so he's either going to end up being a single or a dud. Most likely, as big as that is a single. And there's other burrs on this tree that are even larger than those, so I'm very positive that this tree probably has about an 85% pollination rate this year. Another tree stuck in the shade, nothing. Another tree shaded by a big oak limb that I keep telling myself to cut down, and I haven't. That one turned out to have a big 0. So that limb has to get out of the way if that tree's going to start doing something. And it will produce. It has in the past, and it made some really big nuts. And this past 2 years have been absolutely nothing. So this tree has nothing. There's no burrs in it. This is part of the youth of the tree. It's going to go through cycles where it's going to be loaded, then it might go to nothing, then it might go back to loaded, but eventually it will all even out and the trees can be covered in nuts from year to year. And the older that they get, the more consistent the trees become. This one did something very strange. There were a lot of female flowers on this tree, and I actually got pretty excited because it was going to smash a record for its production, but I'm kind of thinking the drought has caused it to drop them. And for whatever reason, there's nothing on this tree at all, not a single burr. But it does grow very well compared to a lot of my other trees. So at some point, it's going to reset itself and there'll be a lot of burrs, but that's unfortunate. I mean, it's not like these trees are big enough to produce monstrous size nuts to make a big difference in your deer right now. This is all about, you know, what it's going to be 5 to 10 years down the road from now. So here we have my #1 producer, and it is one of my worst growing trees. This tree is loaded with burrs. Every limb has some burr on it, big or small. Now, if you start seeing a lot of burrs that are tiny, you're probably not going to have pollination. Those burrs could actually be duds. And I'm leaning, like this one here, how small that one is compared to the other burrs. Let me bring him down here. That is very small. And I'm trying not to stick myself here, but it's a very small burr for this time of year for this particular tree. It might produce one nut, but most likely it's going to have a bunch of shriveled up nuts in there that's no good. This tree is produced for the first time, and I had checked it before I did the video. I would say about 60% of those look good. The rest of them look like duds. Now this one tree over here is showing me all kinds of great producing potential. I think it will rival my main producer at some point. This tree is covered in burrs. Every limb has multiple burrs on it, which is a very good sign that this tree is a good producer. However, because of the youth of the trees, so we have a fairly large distance between the trees right now, I would say more than 80% of these burrs are duds. So just because you see burrs, and I'll show you how tiny these are, if I can do this without stabbing myself. There we go. So see how tiny that is? It's smaller than ping pong balls. These are very, very tiny. Not a good sign that this tree is going to be very productive this year. So in my book, this tree gets a scratch as far as production. Tree down there, very healthy, has not produced yet. I would say next year there's a very good shot that that one will produce. This tree has been showing signs that it is also going to be a good producer, but this year it has a big fat 0 on it, and that's just too bad. So I'm kind of in that little seesaw battle between younger trees and older trees. Next year this tree's probably going to be covered in nuts. That's just the way it goes sometimes with the youth of the tree. This one down here is actually grown really straight, considering it's a Dunstan. Has produced this year, and I would say 50% or slightly higher. Those burrs look good. So I'm going to have nuts this year from this tree and this tree that did not produce last year. This tree used to produce until Ambrosia killed it. And now I'm growing a new sucker here and training a new tree. This tree is growing very rapidly, and that's what these suckers do. Huge amount of growth on this tree. That right there is more than 4 feet, probably about 4.5 feet of growth. And this limb that's right here actually started right back here, right about where that fork is in it. And that is more than 4 feet of growth. The top only grew about 3-ish, just shy of 3 maybe. But there is a lot of rapid growth, and I've got some decisions to make here. The first one's going to be the easy one, which is the limb on the right. I'm going to cut that limb off and get rid of it. The problem is this particular tree likes growing what I consider a false trunk. So right now, this should be your main leader, but this limb acts like it's the main leader. So there may come a time that after I cut this limb off, I'm going to allow both of these to grow another growing season, and then I'm going to make my decision on who looks like it's going to be the top, because that is a fatter, faster growing limb, which could be the new trunk before this is over with, because the top of that limb actually grew nearly 4 feet. So I've got kind of a dilemma on my hands. This particular tree has kind of been a pain in the butt from time to time, especially with its other former growth that used to be here. It did the exact same thing. It kind of grew straight, and then suddenly a big limb would take over. It would bow the tree or bend the tree, or in some cases put a big crease down in it to where it looked like it wasn't healing good. And it started growing so fast, it started swelling and splitting on a few occasions. So I'm just going to keep track of this one, do whatever maintenance I can, and try to get this tree back on track in the production column. So that's pretty much all I've got. I will be cutting down the small tree here on the left. I was waiting to see if that canker right there was going to heal. And it is healing over. And so I think it's actually healed over to my satisfaction now. And I'm going to cut this little guy off. So after the growing season's over, sometime, I would say sometime in February, late February, I will be doing some maintenance trimming and removal of some of the bigger pieces I don't need. I generally wait all winter long before I do any trimming. That way I do less damage to the tree, less hot and cold spells on it, and prevents it from cracking nearly as much. So this left side will be gone, and it'll be back to one single tree, which this tree did produce, by the way. And the burrs are showing great success right there. That tree actually may have 100% pollination rate this year. I didn't see a bad burr in it. All right, guys, so that is kind of the update to where these trees are heading. This is a far cry from good quality production right now, but I am inching up a little more. And when all these trees kick in and get going, then we can start talking about how rapid things can ramp up, especially all these bigger trees out here on the edge. This tree here has a lot of potential here to blow up in production with all those growing limbs on it. And I don't need to really trim anything on it. So the way it looks now will be the way it looks in growing season. I hope you enjoy these videos. And again, this is a beginner's video, just trying to show you the different stages that these chestnuts go through. And hopefully that will help you out when it comes time to gauge your nut production, and maybe whether or not you need to be hunting near one of these trees. If you've got good production, go for it, because once these deer hit them, they're going to keep coming back. All right, guys, you all have a great day, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you like this content, and that notification bell. Have a great day.